Thank you so much for doing this, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
If someone's listening to this, I want to give them a little bit of a background. So I met you in 2012, and at the time you were with Equitable Title, and it's 2019, and you are still with Equitable Title.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about Equitable Title. So when was this company founded? How many offices you guys have now?
Equitable Title started in 1994, so we're going on our 25th year, and we have 7 locations. So we're rapidly growing.
That's the thing that I find really interesting about you guys. So there's a lot of things that I find interesting, and that's why I wanted to have you here. First thing is, Equitable Title is sort of a different company in the sense that the title world is dominated by, this multi-state conglomerates, billion-dollar companies that have hundreds of offices. And then oftentimes you have this sort of small one-office, mom-and-pop, sort of 3-person operation, boutique title companies. And you guys are somewhere in between. You guys have 6, 7 offices in Central Florida, which, by the way, is a really cool thing because when I'm working with you guys, if I take a listing in Volusia County versus taking a listing in Seminole County, I always have a way to get you guys close enough to my customers to be able to sign the documents in a convenient way. Central Florida is a really open area, and you have the 6 offices. But in the event that someone has a closing outside the area, do you guys have to use mobile closers? Like, how does that work?
We try not to farm it out to a third party. Mm-hmm. We have an in-house closer that will actually go out to pretty much anywhere in Central Florida, all the way up to Daytona, as far south as, Wellington. So we try to keep that in-house so that we know the person that we're sending out to do the closing so she can actually explain the documents. We feel comfortable that everything's going to be completed and handled correctly. So that's something we offer to our agents and forward on to their clients. And we don't charge anything extra for that. That's something we do as a courtesy to make sure that the transaction's handled smoothly.
And there's a clear difference between that approach and the approach of a mobile closer. And I've had good experiences with mobile closers, but I've also had not so good experiences because they were not a part of the transaction. They're just there for the document signing. Oftentimes, when a customer has a question about something specific, the answer of the mobile closer is, well, I'm just here for signing the documents. I can't explain anything to you. And that's a bit of a disservice to that customer that's kind of nervous because feels like they're signing their life away in that
Correct.
time. Another thing that I find curious about Equitable Title that I wanted to talk about is you guys have been around for a long time. And obviously there's a family connection with you and the way the company gets started because your dad was the founder of the company.
Yes.
And so, but you guys have a really good retention with your employees beyond just you. I know a lot of the people in the offices, Susan, Lori, and countless other people that I've worked with that have been with you guys for a long time. It seems to me the title business doesn't do very well at that. And it could be just social media, but my perception is there's a lot of turnover in the industry. But you guys managed to not have that. How is that different for you guys?
Well, we treat our employees really well. We have most of our employees have been with us for 10 plus years. Some are going on or just celebrated their 20th anniversary with us. So we just really are a family-based company and we work really well together. And I think that sticking together as a group and all having that end goal of getting the client's deal closed seamlessly is all our, goals. So if we all have that common goal, there's no reason for them to go work somewhere else. And we truly are a family, and that's really important to.
Yeah, there's a difference between being like a family and being an actual family.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to touch on is, I don't know if this is a new trend or not, so I'm always careful when I say things like this because this is just my perception. But my perception has been over the last few years, so say 3 to 4 years, that there's been an explosion of title reps from all sorts of companies out there, doing their marketing and outreach to agents. But it seems to be sort of happening more than it did before. Like I see people at Topgolf every week. I see people out at the arcades or out, at some event almost every single week. But Equitable does things a little differently. You guys don't have sort of the army of sales reps, do you?
Right. No, we don't. We have a limited number of sales reps, but I will tell you that every one of our sales reps is licensed. And also every one of our sales reps is at least 15 years in the business. So, yes, we all like to entertain, but we bring more to the table than just entertaining. You can give us a call and we'll be able to answer a title question instead of just going out and, having a great time with clients, which is important. I do understand that. But I have clients that'll call me on the weekends and clients that'll call me, at night. And I feel confident in our team that we can answer any of those questions. And I feel that's very important. Our closers work really hard and diligently during the day. So then the after hour calls and on the weekends, that's our team as our sales reps that we handle those calls, and we are all licensed. So we have the ability to do that.
And I can personally attest to that because I've had closings that you did the closing on. I've had closings that Carlos, who is your other sales rep, did the closing for. And it's always sort of refreshing because it's a wealth of knowledge when I'm dealing with anyone in Equitable Title. Is there something, is there a trend in the industry or something that particularly concerns you when it comes to title? And the reason I bring this up is that it seems there's a lot of trends that are trying to sort of take the real estate agent out of the equation. So we have a lot of companies trying to do that as we speak. We have a lot of companies sort of trying to cut the mortgage people out of the equation and sort of automate that part of it. But title is rarely a part of that conversation. Is that something that you guys think about ever, or you feel that because of how detailed and involved your work is, that's perhaps not in the future?
It would be really hard to take us out of the equation if they stepped into our shoes for a little bit, because it's really in depth. It's a lot more behind the scenes work, I think, than most people know. There's a lot of responsibility and liability that falls on us as title companies. So I don't really think a lot of people understand all the back end work that goes on with the transaction and the title company.
Yeah, and just from a money perspective.
Yes.
You guys are holding the escrow deposits on most of the transactions. You guys are getting the wires, so the money from the banks, the money from the buyers. You're dispersing all this money to sellers. So you guys are moving millions and millions of dollars through your accounts on an almost daily basis, I would assume.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we don't think about this enough. One thing that I like about about Equitable Title, you guys have been around for a very long time. And in fairness to the very big title companies, that's something that I like about them too. Like, I know no one's going to take my customers' money and move to the Cayman Islands, and they're going to be left out when they're working with a company that has sort of the standing that you guys have had 25 years, or if it's one of these very large companies, well, they're not going to let someone out on the cold.
Right.
But the amount of liability involved with what you guys do is tremendous because you guys are handling all of the money. Does Equitable have sort of an open book idea with when you're talking to a real estate agent and you're saying, can you, would you mind sending me your business, and you sort of tell them what it is that you guys do? I know you've told me in the past that you guys are an operation with basically no debt. So you guys don't, because you've been around for so long, you own some of your buildings, you have sort of this nailed down. You find that to be a really important part of what you guys do? The ability to operate with very limited liability and exposure financially? I
do, because you never know what's going to happen with the market. Obviously, you and I have both been in the industry for a very long time, so we've seen the good times and the bad times. So having little to no debt at all is very important because it's going to carry us through. So if we do take a little bit of a downturn in the market, we're going to make it through. I mean, we made it through when I can remember back when pretty much 99% of our transactions were short sales. Mm-hmm. And when we got one regular transaction, I think the whole office was like, whoa!
Yeah. And so this is not something that people think about very often, especially an agent that's been licensed over the last, we're talking now 10 years. If you've been licensed over the last 10 years, you haven't seen a lot of the problems that can arise from title companies sort of disappearing in a way. But in Central Florida, and I'm definitely not going to be getting into names, but in Central Florida, we've had examples of what can happen when a title company goes the wrong way. And I think we should be sending business to people because of the sort of fortitude of the company that backs them, because of the value that they can bring to the table. But certainly people need to be a little understanding of what can happen when things go wrong, because you guys are moving the money, because you guys have an extreme amount of importance in the transactions.
Right.
When we are talking about sort of like how you guys get business with agents, we know you don't have an army of sales reps out there. What are some things that you guys do for a real estate agent? So if I come to you and I say, hey, Michelle, I'd like to start doing business with Equitable Title. How are some ways that you can help support my business? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, one of the things that I always offer to agents when I'm first coming to meet with them is basically 100% of my support and the ability for me to be available to them. I know that's kind of cliche, but if they call me, I'm going to be available for them. So I travel a lot. I love to travel, and I never turn my phone off. Mm-hmm. So just being available to answer calls, questions. I have a great staff, but just basically helping them grow their business. I've seen agents start off when I first start working with them, and then just helping them grow through education is basically one of my most important aspects of growing a new agent. Mm-hmm. is taking them step by step through a transaction, understanding how to read a title commitment. I think all those things are very important. Is just knowing what you're getting through along the way. As far as, things like we can offer, we have to stay RESPA compliant.
Of course.
So,
that's good to hear, by the way. The reason that's good to hear is RESPA compliance affects everyone involved.
It does.
In the non-compliant behavior.
Yes.
And so I think I like to work with people that are coloring way inside the lines. I don't want to be anywhere near those lines, because a RESPA problem doesn't just fall on one person. A RESPA problem generally will fall in all the people involved. I think when you're talking about also the resources that you guys provide, it's important to mention that John McGraw, who is
yes.
would you say he's the owner now? I don't know
Yes.
what his official title is.
He is.
So John McGraw is the owner of Equitable Title, and he is a practicing attorney for many years. And I've had this experience that I text the man at 10 o'clock at night because I'm a little shameless when it comes to this stuff. And I get an answer from him. And it's not just him, but it's also the partners that work in his law firm. And that's something that has been crucial to me, because in a transaction, the legal question, so when stuff hits the fan, which doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, I like having the opportunity to message or text an attorney that can give me an answer that I can trust within a couple of minutes. Because if you have a panic seller, if you have a panic buyer, if you have a panic agent, if you have 4 people panicking, and you can find the right answer that's good. And I'm going to give a shout out. John McGraw is a great resource. There's a lot of other attorneys. So Jason O'Neill, Jeff Kaplan, there's a lot of attorneys, Wade Boyette. There's attorneys that I've asked questions on a whim and they answer them. But it's really good when I work with Equitable to know that I have that resource, that John is going to be there and answer a legal question if it arises, because those are often the most urgent ones.
One thing about John is he is a real estate attorney, and he gives out his cell phone number, which is very rare for an attorney to give out his cell phone number. And it's funny because people ask me for his number all the time, and I have no clue what his office number is. I'm like, here's his cell phone, give him a call. But he will not let a deal fall apart. He will work at it until he possibly, can't work at it, but he will do everything in his power to save a deal. If that means even stepping away from something he's already working on to save a deal, no matter what the sales price, he's going to work at it to get that deal closed, which is something that is very important. We don't want to lose any deals, no matter what the sales price.
And it's not necessarily the fact that it's a deal. The problem is when something comes up, generally you already have a moving truck ready. You have multiple families whose life it's really up in the air if this deal doesn't close. So I think it's very important to have that person that really cares about saving it and saving the deal, which in turn saves these people from additional hardship.
Right.
It's a really valuable thing. I think another thing that it's really important when I'm working with you guys is it doesn't matter the fact that I work with you most often. I can go and ask Carlos a question. I can have a closing in your Seminole County office, or I can have a closing in your Orange County office or your Lake County office, and I get the same attention. I don't have people sort of rolling their eyes because they didn't process this transaction themselves.
Right.
And that's a big difference between you guys and what I see elsewhere. If you had to say one thing that you wish was different with the transactions and the title thing and the title end of things, what would that be?
One thing that was different. That's a very
and this
good
is kind
question.
this is kind of where I'm getting at. Title business, in my opinion, is the one that lags behind in terms of innovation and technology.
Right.
Where everything can be DocuSign right now in a real estate transaction, closings cannot be DocuSign.
Correct.
Whereas there is a lot of things in the mortgage side. Shout out to Movement Mortgage. Now they send half of their package for electronic signatures ahead of the closing. So the closing package at the title company ends up being very small. So everybody's kind of innovated in this ways. Is some of those things something that you wish you saw in title that you may be coming?
Well, I went to a seminar recently in regards to having some of the documents electronically signed. The only issue is in the state of Florida, going back to the 1920s, there was the notary laws that were put in place. So those laws will need to be rewritten in order for us to be able to electronically sign and
always
have documents notarized. So if it was up to the title company, yes, 100%, we would love to be able to do that. On a cash transaction, obviously we have the software program. We can send the documents off. They can electronically sign. And there are some documents in our package that if it is a mobile or an out-of-state closing, we can send to them. They can electronically sign. The only documents that would need to be signed in the presence of a notary. But yes, that would be one of the things that I would absolutely love to change, would be on our mail-away closings to have them electronically signed and notarized.
Sure. FedEx wouldn't like it, but you guys would.
Yes, FedEx would not like it, but we would love it.
I think that's one of those things that I've heard customers complain about this type of thing, and I'm always like, listen, it's the government, all right? It's the government. It's not us. We don't want to do it this way, but there's certainly laws in place. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I think this was really, really helpful. If someone's listening to this that's in the industry, I'm sure they picked up on some stuff. If someone's listening to this that it's not in the industry, I'm sure their curiosity's piqued and they're like, oh man, this title stuff is amazing. But before we end, I do want to say another thing. I want to give a shout out to your website, because you guys have seller net sheets. You guys have buyer closing cost estimates and all sorts of resources in your website. What's the link for the website for Equitable?
So it's equitabletitle.com. And if you want to go to our closing cost calculator, you would just click on the closing cost calculator on our website. And one thing I do want to make sure that everybody is aware of, so you create your account, and then under the login details, you would go to your profile, and then make sure you fill out all your contact details and actually upload your photo. So when you're sending out the net sheet to your client, it's actually branding you and your company, as well as all your contact details. So when you send the net sheet to your seller or the buyer's estimate, it has your picture, your branding, and everything right on there. So that's really nice to have.
Very cool. Yes, I love that, because I used to have to create a net sheet on my own on Excel that had all my branding and stuff. But when you guys came up with that, it made life a lot easier, because I just upload my logo, I upload my picture, and when I print it out, it just all looks pretty seamless.
Awesome.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mario.